In this video, we take a look at the AddCityDialogFragment class, which is representing the dialog that gets displayed when the user touches this menu item, Add New City, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And you can see here the dialog on the screen. We can cancel this dialog by simply touching the back button on the screen, which dismisses the dialog. So let's go back over here to our AddCityDialogFragment class, which you can see extends dialog fragment, again because we're dealing with multiple fragments on the screen. When you want to display a dialog over fragments, you use a dialog fragment for that purpose. Now you can see that we're handling our own click events, on-click events for this dialog, and as you'll see a little bit later in this video, the dialog finished listener for this dialog fragment is going to be notified when the user says that they now want to add the city for which they entered a zip code. Now, in order for somebody to be notified of that, they have to implement the interface dialog finish listener, which we saw implemented within the weather viewer activity class. And the method that must be defined in that case is onDialogFinished, which we're specifying here, and that's going to receive the zip code string representing the new city that we're adding and a Boolean true-false value whether or not that city should be the preferred city. At lines 25 and 26, we have two instance variables for an edit text and a checkbox. These represent the inputs that the user is going to be providing. The edit text will be used to allow the user to specify a zip code, and the checkbox indicates whether or not the city is the preferred one. Now, when we create the dialog fragment, its onCreate method will get called, and we're calling the dialog fragment's setCancelable method with the argument true to indicate that the user can simply touch the back button on the device to cancel the dialog and return back to the main screen. Now, when the dialog's onCreateView method gets called, that's when we inflate the layout for the dialog. And you can see here at line 44 and 45 that this method receives a layout inflator as its argument, and we use that to inflate the layout for the AddCity dialog, which is defined in add_city_dialog.xml. We can see that over here in our layout resources. Here it is. And so we inflate that and we assign that to the view variable root view. Then at lines 48 and 49 we get the reference to the edit text, and at lines 52 and 53 we get the reference to the checkbox so that we can use those to manipulate the edit text and checkbox respectively in the rest of this class. Now, if the arguments bundle is not equal to null, which is passed in as the third argument here, then what we're going to do is call into our AddCityEditText's setText method, and we're going to take from that the string returned by arguments bundle.getString, and specifically passing into that the key that represents the bundle key. And basically what this is going to do is if the app was placed into the background while this dialog was displayed on the screen, we're going to repopulate the edit text with that value. At line 63 we set the title of the dialog, and then we create the OK button, or get, I should say, the OK button from the dialog and set its onClick listener to this, indicating that the onClick method is defined in this class to handle the click event of that button. Now, if the dialog gets placed into the background, if the whole activity gets placed into the background while this dialog is displayed on the screen, onSaveInstanceState will take the value that was in the edit text and store it so that it can be repopulated when the activity comes back to the foreground. And then finally, the onClick method is going to check to see if we clicked the Add City button. If we did, then we tell we get our activity, which is the listener in this case for the dialog finish event. And remember that we implemented dialog finish listener on the weather viewer activity class. So getActivity returns a reference to the activity. We know that that activity implemented dialog finish listener, so we cast it to that type. And then we tell that listener that the dialog finished. And in this case, we pass in the string representation of the text in the edit text and the Boolean value indicating whether or not that city is the preferred city. And that tells the activity to now go ahead and add that city into the cities fragment and possibly make it to the preferred city as well. And we dismiss the dialog so that we can go back to the main screen in our activity.